Hi, everybody. Dr. Natasha Wilkerson here from Vivify STEM. And today we're going to dive into this topic of early STEM, why it matters, what are the facts, and how can we close the diversity gap in STEM. Let's get started. If you go into Google Images, and search the word engineer, which is a kind of STEM career pathway, here are maybe some images you'll get. And this is just from my computer. And what I quickly noticed is wow, engineers really like wearing hard hats. Engineers are often walking around with a clipboard. Fun fact, I'm an engineer and I never once wore a hard hat when I worked as an engineer. I also noticed that a lot of engineers are white men, but we see one woman, oh, maybe two here. But this is just to give you a sense of the stereotypes that are often associated with STEM careers. And just from a simple Google search, you can get an idea of what are kids thinking about? What are they being bombarded with different types of STEM careers? And this is also going to create a bias for AI. So if you're using AI to write, say, an essay about engineering, it's probably going to have a lot of these same stereotypes. Let's talk about media, books, and movies. Who are you thinking of when you think of an engineer? Maybe it's Iron Man. I like this article, Top 10 Fictional Engineers of All Time. So, how is this creating certain ideas of who can be an engineer or a STEM professional? And where are students mostly getting this content? Now we have a lot of social media impacting students. What are the perceptions there of engineering and STEM careers? Let's get into the data for a second. Okay, so when we talk about underrepresented groups, we can look first at minorities, and these are the different minorities when we're for this report, which is from the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. And you can kind of see this flat line, right? So have we really made much progress in underrepresented minorities getting a larger percentage of bachelor, masters, and PhDs? Not really. So, despite underrepresented groups being 33% of the population, they still only hold 24% of bachelor's degrees in science and engineering. And that's kind of stayed the same, especially for that doctoral degree for the last 20 years. What about women? So here was another chart I found in showing how women hold about 50%, so 48%, this was in 2009, of all jobs, but only hold 24% of STEM jobs. So we're seeing this big disparity here of later in the career pipeline. So you have the, degrees that you get, but then what about persistence in that STEM career pathway? So this is just some ways to start thinking about this idea of underrepresentation in STEM. So then I was interested in this research of okay, where do we start coming up with these ideas of what do I want to be when I grow up and what really predicts your persistence in STEM? And so I found two studies that I think are really relevant here. One is that STEM interest declines around 11 years old. So we're talking like sixth grade. So, and you can see that in your own teaching in elementary school, they're so excited and curious, but then it starts going away with all that standardized testing and memorization and doing things that they're just not that excited about, and they're attaching that to maybe science and engineering pathways. And so then they just start getting checked out and they're like, I'm not really interested in this. Why should I even try in my science class? Why should I even try in my math class? And then another study, which was a longitudinal study, basically asked eighth graders, are you interested in a science or engineering degree? And then for those that said yes, then they track them through the end of college. So they looked at all their whole sample, all their the students that they surveyed, and those that said yes, I'm interested in a science or engineering degree, were 3.4 times more likely to actually follow through on it. So this idea is if in middle school they are excited and interested, they're more likely to actually stick with it. And so it's harder to come in high school and say, hey, you should think about science and engineering. You often start earlier establishing your identity and the things that you're interested in. And that will also drive your persistence. So the big idea here is we're losing a lot of potential scientists and engineers and other STEM professionals very early on. So what can we do? While we can make STEM more accessible, so not just having certain groups of students engage in STEM activities, but making it something part of all students' experiences, and in a way that's very hands on and enriching and connects to real world STEM. Representation matters. So exposing them to a large different types of STEM professionals in a way that makes it relatable and attainable. And you can do that by engaging with partners. So are there local STEM companies? Can they come out and do a presentation? Can you go to them on a field trip? And then also informal STEM. So whether running a space club or a robotics program, a coding club, this informal space has been found to really make an impact on the interest in STEM. Plus, you're not dealing with a lot of the constraints of a classroom setting. You have a little more flexibility. You can have some activities that maybe you can't do during the school day. And that gives students more opportunities to engage in STEM in a very positive way. And so think about what your school can do. Do you have these programs already existing? How can you maybe increase more diversity and representation of the people that you're highlighting, even in your history class and the inventors? Are you featuring some of the lesser known, maybe women in STEM that have had discoveries that maybe weren't as recognized as their male counterparts? So there's lots of ways that we can really be intentional about increasing and retaining that early interest in STEM. So I'm going to play a little game here with you, and this is from one of our lessons, which is who is a STEM professional? And so this first question is just who is an engineer? And a question this is a picture from that lesson, and I have the students guess, like, is this guy an engineer? And you can also turn it into, is this guy a STEM professional? The answer is, yeah, he is. Actually, this is Jeff Bezos, an Amazon CEO. He has a degree in electrical engineering. All right, is she an engineer? You can think about, what are the kids thinking right now when they see a picture of her? And maybe you know this famous celebrity, Emily. She's an aerospace mechanical engineer. She hosts and produced several different awesome productions, including Emily's Wonder Lab, which my kids absolutely love. And I think she's an amazing role model for our students. Okay, this lady, is she an engineer? Is she a scientist? And yes, she is an engineer, and she's also a former astronaut. This is Dr. Ellen Ochoa. So that just gives you a little bit of ways that you can increase representation, even turn it into a fun game where you're having them actually have to face their own stereotypes of what it means to be a scientist, to be an engineer, and then reflecting on that. You may have heard of this survey where you draw a scientist or you draw an engineer, and that kind of reveals the stereotypes they have of it. And then at the end of the lesson, you have them draw the scientist, draw an engineer again, and see if there's any changes in their thinking. So I hope this helps kind of jumpstart your thinking about why early engagement in STEM in a positive way is so important.